my lords. Today we discuss the upcoming changes to the genetic ascension path, specifically the new path, biomorphosis, and the various components that come along with it, including the new situation, the modular tradition tree, and genetically themed advanced authorities. This is going to be a good one. Let's get into it. According to Biomorphosis, to leave our genetic destiny in the hands of nature is inefficient and excruciatingly slow. So why not jumpstart the future of our species? Upon selecting the Biomorphosis Ascension perk, you will start on the path to shape the future of your civilization through a series of decisions that will define how your species evolves. At the beginning of each stage, you'll select one of 3 philosophical and technological approaches to help guide your development. Natural selection and genetic drift will no longer stand in between you and biological dominance. As a civilization, you will be on the verge of redefining the future of your species. Your flesh is clay, and you, the sculptor. So, this situation appears to be broken into 3 individual stages, and I would assume that we can choose between purity, cloning, and mutation for each of these 3 stages. You'll have the ability to make the choice 3 times, so you could go cloning, cloning, mutation, or you could go purity, cloning, mutation, or you could go purity, purity, purity. So let's explore those 3 choices in more detail. With purity, the body is a sacred vessel, and perfection lies in refinement, not deviation. This approach focuses on enhancing existing traits, optimizing your species' current genetic code, and preserving essential identity. Expect events about ideological purity, resistance to corruption, both internal and external, and perhaps a little eugenics drama, if you're feeling spicy. Cloning, on the other hand, is where mass production will meet organic precision. Cloning will enable you to scale your population quickly and efficiently, but at what cost to individuality? The cloning path will explore questions of identity, resource management, and ethical dilemmas surrounding consciousness and copyhood. You may find your leaders arguing about the souls of your citizens, or the cost-benefit analysis of their replaceability. I think the megacorps might enjoy that one. The last one we have is mutation. Why perfect the old when you can become something new? Mutation embraces chaos, randomness, and radical adaptation. This is the path for those who believe in progress through transformation, no matter how monstrous. As your species warps and shifts, so too will your empire. Expect powerful new traits, disturbing events, and maybe even a few limbs where there weren't any before. It would appear that, like some of the ascensions that came with Machine Age, we will require a specific building in order to progress the situation. This is called the Genomic Research Facility, and one assumes you'll need this in order to progress the situation. But what's going to be entirely different is how this situation plays out. Each stage of biomorphosis will bring with it new narrative events and mechanical consequences. All will be tailored to your chosen approach. As I mentioned earlier, you can now double down on a single path, or mix and match, or create something truly unique, a mosaic of flesh, thought, and purpose. So whether you're breeding perfect paragons, churning out clone armies, or embracing the squelching beauty of the unknown genome, biomorphosis will offer you a chance to live your best post-Darwinian fantasy. So my lords, originally I had assumed that the modular ascension would allow us access to 3 tradition trees, and we would be able to pick 5 from each 3 trees in total. So 2 from purity, 2 from mutation, and 1 from cloning, but it appears that I was wrong on that account. In fact, as your empire progresses through the biomorphosis situation, the approach choices you make, i.e. purity, cloning, or mutation, don't just influence the events that your empire goes through, but they also determine which traditions you'll gain access to in the new modular genetic ascension tree. Because of this, in theory, different choices in each playthrough will feel different, because each tradition tree will be built around the foundational path, i.e. purity, cloning, or mutation, but then augmented by select traditions from the other 2 trees, depending on your hybridization of choices across the 3 stages. So, as an example, If you've picked mutation twice and cloning once, you'll get a mutation-based tree with some synthetic reproductive flavour coming from the cloning tree. Or, if for example you go all in on purity, you can expect a tradition tree as tight and controlled as your gene pool. Each tradition within the tree will reinforce the strengths and philosophies of its source. So purity will enhance species cohesion, trait optimization, and biological defense mechanisms. Cloning will focus on growth efficiency, leader replacement, and societal adaptation to mass production living. And mutation will unlock exotic biology, unpredictable perks, and flirt with the unrecognizable. According to the developers, they wanted to create a system that reflects you, the player. Not just your Empire species, but the ideological journey that you've taken. This modular design means that you aren't locked into one narrow vision of genetic ascension. It means that you can experiment, you can mix paths or triple down on your biological ideals. Whether you're crafting a society of elegant gene priests, or an unholy sprawl of ever-shifting abominations, the tradition tree will evolve with you. So this is not at all what I imagined, but I am all for it, and I'm very, very interested to see the sort of decisions that we will have to make as we progress through the situation. There are a couple of threads I'd like to pull on. The first is in the purity section, where they talk about ideological purity, resistance to corruption, both internal and external, and perhaps eugenics drama if you're feeling spicy. This already feels extremely Stellaris, but moving away from that for a second, I wonder what resistance to corruption, both internal and external, means. Are they talking about the Galcom here? Are they talking about some sort of internal politics? I wonder what this means. Resistance on an individual level to genetic ascension, perhaps? Perhaps specific individuals in your empire will not be very happy with the idea of purity. It remains to be seen, but it does make me think that there is a spiritualistic event that occurs when you're ascending to be machines, where some of your population aren't very happy with it. If memory serves, that is a somewhat lackluster event, so I wonder if that's been expanded on at all. The cloning theme is also incredibly interesting. Cloning enables you to scale your population quickly and efficiently, but at what cost to individuality? It appears here we will face ethical dilemmas surrounding consciousness, and this could be very interesting to get into indeed. Perhaps it raises the question, do clones have souls? Can you clone a soul? I would guess yes, since at the moment clone ascendants and descendants can become psionic, but maybe that will change. If anything, just for my amusement, I'd quite like clones to have souls, while hive minds don't have souls. For some reason that would make me happy. The mutation tree is clearly the Tyranid style tradition tree, and I think this is going to fit very nicely with bioships and probably the hive mind. Mutation embraces chaos, randomness, and radical adaptation. Actually, now that I come to think about it, it will be very interesting to see what hive minds have access to. I assume they will have access to all three biological ascensions, but then would a hive mind be remotely bothered about the cost of individuality of cloning? I'd guess no. Equally, would a hive mind care at all about ideological purity? Again, I assume no. So it'd be really exciting to see what sort of flavour they've cooked up specifically for the hive minds. I'm sure the developer Iggy has been heavily involved in that. As I touched on, I feel like mutation is the obvious go-to for lots of hive mind players. The Tyranid vibe of course, but it does fit very nicely with Devouring Swarm. As your species warps and shifts, you adapt to any enemy, and more limbs is always a good thing, right? So that segment covers the genetic ascension paths. Which of the three are you most looking forward to playing? Purity, cloning, or mutation? Please let me know in the comments. But now we move on to the advanced authorities. And these are definitely going to add extra spice and theme to your playthrough. Once you've completed your unique genetic ascension tree, your empire will be ready for its next evolutionary leap. Not just biologically, but politically. Biogenesis will introduce a new system of advanced authorities tailored to the philosophy that shaped your biomorphosis journey. Whether you rule through mandate, decree, profit, consensus, or collective consciousness, your ascended society will transform into a more specialized and thematically rich version of its based authority, infused with either purity, cloning, or mutation ideology. And these are not just cosmetic upgrades, Each advanced authority will come with unique modifiers and governing mechanics, reflecting the biopolitical ideals your empire has chosen to embody. So I would assume, similar to Machine Age, that bioempires who ascend genetically get access to these advanced authorities, and if they are anything like the ones from Machine Age, they will be very powerful indeed. So we have 6 to preview. We also appear to have names for both the regular organic and hive mind variant. So the first, as an example, is Cloning Democracy, which would be the organic name, and the second is Concordant Multiplicity, which I assume will be the hive name. This government will embrace cloning technology as a testament to both equality and progress. Clones will stand shoulder to shoulder with natural-born individuals, their voices equally valued, and the will of the people is enriched by the diversity of every perspective, clone or otherwise. So while I appreciate this is the first one, I won't ramble on this for too long. This is already beginning to pull on the thread of internal politics that they sort of touched on earlier. It isn't at all highly unreasonable that there would be animosity between clone-born humans and naturally born humans. We will always find something to argue about, of course, and I do wonder how that's going to be reflected in an Ascension and advanced government such as this one. The next is Mutation Hive Mind or Adaptive Dominion. This hive's hyper-adaptive drones form a dynamic and ever-evolving force, leveraging constant mutation to overcome environmental and tactical challenges. Each adaptation strengthens the collective, ensuring unparalleled versatility and resilience as the hive mind thrives in any condition. So this one immediately feels like a devouring swarm. They will adapt to anything and consume everything, adapt, overcome, and so forth. Although we don't have any specific stats for what these descriptions represent, it does make you wonder what they could offer. Is this going to come with some sort of auto-modding trait to constantly rotate species traits as required? Who knows? The next is Purity Dictatorship or Nucleic Judiciary. This government wields genetic and biometric data as tools of preemptive justice, scrutinizing every citizen's genetic code for criminal predispositions. By intervening before transgression, it ensures that through meticulous oversight, true justice is not reactive, but preventative, safeguarding society by eliminating crime at the root. Purity Dictatorship is not the first thing I would have imagined. This appears to be a hyper-authoritarian government type, and at first glance I would have guessed that purity was tied more to some sort of fanatic purifier. But it seems like they want their entire species to be pure in order to reduce crime. It's an interesting theme indeed. The next is Cloning Megacorp or Replicating Horde. Advanced cloning technology drives the relentless production of genetically identical drones, each engineered for perfect efficiency and unity. Obeying the innate command to go forth and multiply, this hive intends to blot out the stars. So it seems that this one we got the hive mind description rather than the regular empire description. Cloning Megacorp is actually a really cool theme to explore, and it makes me think of some sort of cloning megachurch, where we clone hordes and hordes of missionaries and send them out to the stars to convert other species to our religion. It is a fascinating theme indeed. Mutation Empire or Genomic Expansionist is next. Embracing the unpredictable power of random mutation, this empire taps into the untold potential, fostering innovation and ability that traditional methods could never achieve. In the race for dominance, the chaos of mutation becomes their greatest advantage, propelling them to unrivaled supremacy. This one is clearly feeling like a genetic lottery, I think. I'm unsure how else they could implement a sort of mutation-style ascension tree without there being heavy RNG elements in it, and I wonder how much control we'll have over what happens to our species. In any case, it is quite nice that we're not necessarily forced down this route. We can of course choose, and thus if you want to experience this heavily RNG-based ascension tree, mutation is probably going to be the one for you. Is purity oligarchy or eugenic hierarchy? And this description is perhaps what I thought purity dictatorship would be, so it's nice that we have different variants. Purity oligarchy is described as absolute power must be entrusted to the genetically ordained elite. The purest and most capable stewards are this civilization's destiny. Beneath them, each citizen fulfills a predefined role, meticulously tailored to their inherited genetic potential. Contentment flows not from ambition, but from accepting one's designated purpose. This description absolutely fulfills what I would have expected from a purity tradition tree. It is going to be really interesting to see how these tie in to different ethics. For example, a purity oligarchy feels like it could in no way be even remotely egalitarian, so I wonder if this is tied to specifically an authoritarian government type. I also can't wait to see what they come up with in terms of diplomatic events surrounding some of these. For example, an egalitarian empire would surely find some of these advanced authorities, or even ascensions, incredibly abhorrent. Delving into the nuance of the politics around this has some real scope indeed. Just think for a minute, you're a meritocracy, xenophile, egalitarian, and your neighbour is genetically ascending through the purity tree and delving into things like eugenics, and stating that specific genetic traits means that you can only work specific jobs. Clearly, this egalitarian meritocracy is not going to approve at all, and I wonder how that will be reflected in the relations between these two empires. Each of the three biomorphosis philosophies, purity, cloning and mutation, has its own flavour of authority, and in total we will get access to 18 advanced authorities, all designed to express the vision of what society has become in the aftermath of your biological transcendence. So what are your thoughts so far on these advanced ascensions? Do any stand out to you? I'm personally interested in getting into the purity tree. I tend to enjoy a single species empire, mostly just because it's clean and neat, and I don't have to worry about a messy species tree. So being able to purify these pops into the absolute S-tier best species in the galaxy really appeals to me. But I can also massively see the appeal of a mutating hive mind, for obvious reasons. But what do you think? What is the most appealing of the three that I've discussed? And which of the advanced authorities that I've been able to share with you stands out the most? Please let me know. And finally, we're going to round this off with talking about clone armies. Before I get into this, I will say that the clone army, specifically psionic ascending clone armies, is probably my most played empire. I enjoy the story, I enjoy the theme, and it is remarkably good fun taking ascending clones, psionically ascending, making a dirty deal with the Eater of Worlds, and then devouring the galaxy. But with the Biogenesis DLC, it appears that clones are going to be affected. To start with, as a clone army origin, you will be prevented from undertaking biomorphosis until you've unlocked your genetic potential, i.e. completed the dig site and special projects. However, once you've done this, biomorphosis will become available, and you could even take it as your first Ascension perk. So some background for those unfamiliar with Clone Army. After a few years into the game, you'll find a dig site on your home planet. If you complete the dig site, you're given a special project. Complete that first special project and you're given a second. But there's a choice with the second one. You can choose to ascend, or you can choose to descend. Ascension will provide your clones with fantastic stats and capabilities. They will essentially become some of the best available leaders and pops in the entire game. But you're limited to 100 of them, which have to be supported by a specific building called the Ancient Clone Vats. Because of this, you can never achieve more than 100 Ascendant clone pops. However, if you choose to descend, you will lose the clone vats and you will lose some of the clone's power. But importantly, they will be able to reproduce once again, so you can therefore grow or reproduce as many clones as you like through having clone babies. If you go down the clone fertility route, i.e. descend, then this will make your species capable of reproduction once more, as I've just said, and it will now allow you to undertake biomorphosis with a complete freedom of any of the three paths you desire, so purity, mutation or cloning. And remember, you could in theory also take this as your first Ascension perk, which would be very powerful indeed. If, on the other hand, you take clones and you go down the potential route, meaning that you ascend, and that your species would normally remain as infertile clones, remember you'd be locked to 100, then this will now lock you to an upgraded version of the cloning ascension path if you were to choose biomorphosis. Now on first reading, I thought this might mean that if you took clone ascendant, you would not be able to ascend psionically, cybernetically or synthetically, but having chatted with one of the developers, that is not the case. If as a clone origin empire you choose to ascend, and you have the Biogenesis DLC, you'll get access to all the Ascensions as you normally would do, but also this special, unique Biomorphosis cloning path. This upgraded cloning path will give you the following in addition to the regular rewards. You will now be able to genetically modify clone soldier species, which is something you could previously not do. So in theory, you'll be able to make your clone soldiers, which are already essentially the best species in the galaxy, even stronger. Your regular clone vats, genomic research facility, and medical buildings will increase the number of clone soldiers sustained per planet. So not only can we make our extended clones more powerful than they already are, we can make more of them. And finally, you'll be able to apply the clone soldier trait to other species by genetic modification. So you can uplift regular species into ascended clone soldiers. This is going to be absolutely massive for the clone origin, which, as I've already stated, is one of my favourite and most played origins, and incidentally, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, organic origin as it stands. The ability for clones to ascend is already extremely powerful, and it's currently one of the only origins that can come even close to some of the machine empires that exist in the galaxy. The ability to grow more than 100 clones is going to be huge, and the ability to genetically modify the clone soldiers to make them even stronger than they already are is unbelievable. Furthermore, being able to apply the clone soldier trait to other species via genetic modification is marvellous as well. We can take over other empires and then bring them into the clone army fold with genetic manipulation, increasing their already very powerful abilities. I think that the organics are going to come out of this DLC swinging incredibly hard, and I think the machines, even the virtual ones, might be in trouble here. As ever, please let me know what you think, and I'll be back this time next week with another developer diary report covering phenotype traits and the evolutionary predator's origin. I'll see you next week.